You right there, Gaz?
How do? How are you?
We're
How
live,
are
mate,
you?
we're live. Have you pinned it? Have you pinned it?
I haven't pinned it yet. I'm just trying to pin it now. So I've
Come
got
on, stop
the.
messing about. There's like people
Easy,
watching.
tiger, easy. Right.
Come on, this is so unprofessional.
Gee, just give me a minute, will you? I'm struggling here. I'm struggling.
Sorry, everybody else that's watching. Come on, Gaz.
Graham.
Have you done it yet?
Like? Hey.
Have you done it?
I can't even find it.
I've pinned it to my. If you go and find my profile.
Yeah, I've got your profile. Here we go.
Pinned it to the top. Copy the tweet and put it in yours.
Right.
You got it.
I can see myself. Yeah.
You can see yourself messing about. Come on.
Give me a chance.
The viewer numbers are going down as you mess about. It was high. We had about 50, 60. We're now down to 18, 15, 16.
Right. Pin to your profile. Pinned.
You done it?
Love it.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Here we go.
Morning, Gaz. How are you, mate?
Oh, I'm good. I'm stressed out now. I can feel myself sweating. It's all this pressure of I can deal with all kinds of stuff, but when you start asking me to pin tweets to me profile, then it all goes belly up.
It's a bit different to tweeting the usual Monday night primary rocks chat, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it certainly is. It certainly is. Can you see John?
Yeah, I can see John. Yeah, we'll put John in a minute.
Bring John in.
Why have you chosen to do this then, Gaz?
Well, a couple of reasons. I loved the brewheads that you were doing over the lockdown, and one of the things that I quite liked about the brewheads was that you saw lots and lots of people. But slightly different for us is I quite like the longer form of CPD. So for me, your brewheads just gave me a little. It was like having a starter. And it just gave me a snippet of things that I went on, and then kind of throughout the day, I lost myself in loads of tabs that open at the top. And that kind of sparked the idea for this. We've not been able to do Primary Rocks live this year for obvious reasons. So it was just a way of trying to give back. So I was speaking with John Murray, Reading Explorer, and he said that he'd like to do the first one. We had a good talk about it, and he should be joining us here. But can you see him?
Yeah, we get him in a minute. He's in the waiting room.
He's there, mate. He's worrying. He's texting me. Yeah, can you see me?
He's in the green room. He's all right.
You're in the green room. Chill out with a beer and a pretzel.
He's getting his money. Did I ever tell you about the time I was on Good Morning Britain and I got my makeup done next to Charles Dance?
Tell me what happened there.
Well, I've told you it now. That's the story.
You've got loads of stories about your celebrity friends, haven't you?
Yeah. I haven't. I've just got the same old stories. I peddle all the time. So, Gaz, what's the format going to be tonight then, my friend?
Well, it's slightly different, like I said, to yours. We've got John coming on. We're going to introduce him in a moment. John's a reading expert, absolutely fantastic. He's come to our school and changed the way that we think about reading. And he's going to be talking about reading for pleasure, but also reading for purpose. Yeah. Because the two are vitally important and kind of go hand in hand. You hear lots about reading for pleasure and maybe not so much about reading for purpose. So when I spoke to John about it, he was keen to do both sides of the coin on reading. So he's going to talk to us about 5 particular points, and then once he's finished, if anybody's got any questions, you can put them on the comments. I can see quite a few people, Bryn telling me to chop, and I'm getting the abuse already off Bryn, which is fine. Just wait till I see him in person.
If you are watching on Twitter, the best way to do it is look at the pinned tweet either on my profile or on the Primary Rocks profile. And if you click that link, you can then, it's a bit more interactive. You can then send comments and we can get abused and things like that. Yeah, see, look, Bryn's having trouble with the internet. It's all jerky for him.
Yeah, that's because he lives in Glossop, isn't he? Or out Glossop way. That's
this is dodgy download.
They've only just got electricity out there. They're slightly behind Oldham, where I'm from.
He's still on dial-up, isn't he? Is he still on dial-up?
56k modem.
Should we get John in?
We'll get John in. So after John's spoken, then anybody who's got any questions, you can put them in the comments, and then we'll put them to John afterwards. Because me and you are going to disappear, aren't we? Have a drink,
we'll come back, won't we?
Chill out, and then we'll any questions that pop up in the comments, we'll come back and do a bit of a question and answer session. And if no questions come up, because he makes everything absolutely crystal clear, we'll just come up with a few questions ourselves, won't we?
Yeah, but you know, to be fair, I've got a few questions I need to ask him anyway.
And then at the end, we're going to do some book recommendations as well. So I'm looking forward to doing my book recommendation.
Okay, is that the dogs or is that you?
That's the dog.
I thought you were hungry, Gaz.
No, I've had my tea tonight.
That's all right. Good. Let's get John in. Here he is.
Hello. I can't see you, so I'm just gonna imagine what you're looking like and what you're wearing.
Well, that could be quite dangerous, John.
Yeah, that could be. Let's
just have to ask, why have you got an exercise bike in your background? Are you trying to impress somebody tonight?
I am. I'm trying to motivate myself to get fit. No, it's just there. It's about to go soon.
Oh, can you make a story out of it, John? Just say it's a plot.
Do I look like a guy who exercises? Not really. Never mind. I don't know why that's there.
And Graham, your blue screen is making your eyes look even bluer. Have you got something blue on that screen, or is it a blue light to make your eyes look so blue?
It's just the monitor screen. It's just my eyes are very blue, John.
You're looking gorgeous,
guys. Yeah, I'm quite gorgeous. Yeah. Although John can't see it, of course, because all he can see is his PowerPoint screen.
My PowerPoint. I'm on it.
Should we disappear and leave John to it then, Gaz?
That sounds good to me. Thanks, Graham.
Right, we're going to put it up. So there we go. And we are going to disappear. John, you all right?
I hope so. So we'll make a start and we'll see if it goes wrong or right.
Yeah, well, we'll be watching. Don't worry. If you need any help, give us a signal.
I will do. I'll do this. I'll scratch my ear. Right, I take it we're going to start then. So my name's John. I'm privileged to be asked to do this. We're going to start by just going through a few things, reading for pleasure and purpose. That's my website there. So if you don't get anything answered or you want to ask for some more information, just pop a little message down and I'll get that back to you when I can. So we're going to look at 5 ways to promote reading for pleasure tonight. And just before we do that, I just want to show you, just discuss this sentence here. So it says, reading is not simply a cognitive process. This is an emotional response. And I've put that there because I think it's really important. In fact, it should underpin everything, really. My job as a reading consultant is to go around the country, and I tend to look at processes and how to manage and how to do reading, especially guided reading and reading intervention, shared reading in the early years. But if you're not careful, you tend to see reading as becoming a process, and you forget that it's an emotional response. We thrive on reading and get the most out of reading when we interact with or engage with the text. And that's fundamental. If we love something, you're more likely to engage with it, want to engage with it, and to be part of that. So, for example, to illustrate that, one of the main, at every stage of reading development, girls tend to outperform boys. Now, there are lots of reasons for that. Some of it's social, some of it's cultural, but one of the reasons is that girls mature quicker than boys. So they're able to empathise and sympathise with the character or the situation that the character finds themselves in. So they can engage with text on an emotional level. Now, that's not to say that boys will never be in your more adept readers. Of course they will. But I want you to think about those boys who are your most capable or adept readers. And I'll tell you now, they'll probably be your sensitive types, because they can access and interpret and engage with the text on an emotional level. So all the way through this, sometimes when you're thinking about reading, you've got to think of the whole child. You can't just develop reading within a child without thinking of the child holistically, and developing that system. So the 5 points that we're going to look at tonight are, well, the first one is pass on your passion. How can we pass on? We might be really love reading at the moment, but how do we pass that passion on to not just children, but other staff members, to our parents? How do we do that? The second point we'll look at tonight is story time. Absolutely crucial, this. No marking, nothing to do with a curriculum as such, but the importance of story time and why we should engage with that. The third session, the third part we'll do is beyond the classroom. So we may feel that we read lots of books and we really engage with children and text within our own classroom, but how does that go firstly to the whole of the to an ethos that pervades the school ethos of reading, but also beyond the school gates? How can we get reading in the home and in the outside world, in the real world, if you like? As Gaz said, we'll look at the other side of the coin. The reading for pleasure coin is reading for purpose. We'll look at that. We won't spend too long on that because we've got a lot to get through tonight, but reading for purpose is really important as well. And they go hand in hand, really. They can't talk about reading for pleasure if you don't also consider reading for purpose. And the last part I want to talk about today is autonomy, learner choice, reader's choice. What books do they choose to read that they want to read on their own independently, and how do we facilitate that? So pass on your passion. I hope through this, when we get to choose and talk about books, you see my passion for books. But it's not just about books, it's about language and developing a love for the written word and spoken word as well, really. So the first few questions there are you a reader? So a very personal question. We're not always in the mood for reading. Sometimes we something's crowding our head and we don't feel like picking up a book. And and not every staff member in the staff room will be a reader, and that's quite acceptable. So it's about how you recognise that and how can you encourage all staff members to want to read to children and develop that with individuals. Which book should I read? That's an interesting question, because lots of teachers say, "Oh, have you got a book that you can recommend to me about Vikings, or a book?" And sometimes you have to think, I don't like being told what to read. Sometimes you have a curriculum, you've got to do that, but you'll never pass on your passion for a book that you don't particularly like. So when it comes to something like story time, who chooses the book that you read to children? Well, for me, it's you as an individual, because you'll always be, if you fall in love with a book, you'll absolutely want to pass that passion on to those who are listening to them. One way to do that is in the last staff meeting of the half term. Why don't you just give 20 minutes over, and everyone has to bring in a book or a piece of literature, could be a poem, could be song lyrics, and they have to bring that to the final staff meeting of that half term, and just spend a couple of minutes saying, why did it blow you away? Why did you fall in love with this text? How engaged were the learners? And that will help everyone share books and become more literate, if you like. Not everyone. I'm in a lucky position because I get to go around schools across the UK, and I get given books to read and just say, oh, read this book, it's amazing, I love it. And they're new to me. So if you're some members of your staff are not readers, when are they going to come across that love of reading? And so you have an interchange and a sharing of books and texts within that staff meeting. I remember once having a book, The Tear Thief, and I'd read that in year 4 with my year 4 class, and I didn't particularly like it. It didn't. I at that time, for whatever reason, I didn't particularly like that book. I just thought it's okay. What's the fuss? At one of these staff meetings, a lady brought from year 1 brought the same book, and she's just like, "This book is amazing. The Tear Thief, it's amazing. You've got to." And this is what happened in my class. I won't tell you what happened in her class, but by the end of her retelling us what she'd done with those children and why it was so powerful, that story, I went home that night and I read the book again. But I read the book through her eyes and through the eyes of that child. And it really just blew me away again, because I read it with fresh eyes, if you like. And that's the power of sharing books within a staff meeting. It makes sure that you've also got a rich diet. So if you've got, which book should I read to them? When do you share that? Well, staff meetings at one point, but also what type of books do you share? Is it all? Are you always going to pick Michael Morpurgo books or things like that? That diversity in books. So you've got a range of authors, a range of situations within different types of stories, then that's really important as well. So that takes us to story time. Let's see what. So when can I read to my class? A lot you can read. There's one little thing that people say: drop everything and read. So they call it DARE, drop everything and read. I don't particularly like that, because it's almost like, forget everything, let's just do this for 10 minutes, right? Now get back to it. And I've put the question there, should it be timetabled? Now, I'm going to say yeah. If it's so fundamentally important that children have the right and have that story time, it's proven that just listening to a story being read for 10 minutes improves their comprehension levels. So all children should be have that story time. It's not just the province of Key Stage 1. Even year 6, have carpet time, have listen to those classic stories. You might want to do it at the beginning of the day, or you might want to do it straight after dinner. Personally, and it is only a personal thing, I like it to be at the very end of the day. And I'll say that because it's a very relaxing time. So if you're reading at the end of the day, or the lights, there are 2 reasons why it's good to do it at the end of the day. Firstly, there's nothing coming after it other than home time. So you can really relax, you can get into that chilled mode, and you can close your eyes, put your head down, and just let that beautiful language and that lovely story wash over you. It's really powerful, that. And the second reason why I think at the end of the day is quite a nice one, especially if it's timetabled, is about implicit messages. Because while all the lights have been dimmed and you are reading the story and closing your eyes and getting into that lovely reading atmosphere, who's waiting outside? Well, the parents and the carers. So the implicit message there is, we as a school love reading, we value reading, so should you. And it's just a little bit of an implicit message that is so powerful, so powerful. I've put there at the bottom, all change. So it was interesting, this, because I used to do this in my guided reading training. I used to include this a lot, and I've watched some Open University stuff from Teresa Kremin, and it's in there as well. So that's really good. Now, all change is something you can do to show that you as a staff love reading and that you engage. So what you can do is, once a term, suspend guided reading. Don't do guided reading. And you do an all change week. So you theme it. So it could be my or our favourite picture books or our favourite poem. So say it was a poem. So you can't. So on a Monday, if I'm in year 4, I don't for that half hour or 40 minutes of guided reading, I'm not with my class. I move. I know this is after the bubbles have all gone, but you can then the adult changes. And so on a Monday, you might be in with year 3, but you can't just read the poem or read the storybook that you love. You've got to say what book is it? Why do you love it? Who introduced it to you? You know. So if it was our favourite poem, on a Monday I might go in I don't know, into year 3 and just say, right, I'm going to read you a poem called A Jockey's Life. I love this poem, but I love this poem because it reminds me of my granddad. My granddad taught us this poem when we used to go down Ashley Valley and up through the valley and go walking, and we had to learn this poem by heart. And so you get them involved, but then you might do that story again into year 4, in year 5, in year 6, in year 1. And it's about them recognising that as a staff, you're all readers, all readers. On the final day, on the Friday, you go back to your classroom and you tell your class what your favourite thing. It's so nice. It's so nice. Don't do it at Christmas and Easter because, again, I have to do an all change week, and it's just really nice. Third thing there is beyond the classroom. So let me see what we've got there. So we've got the library. Oh, before I talk about these 4, I want you to think about if you're doing some beautiful work and you're passing on your passion about books and story time, when do you tell the parents that? When do you tell the parents that? Well, if there's one person I want you to follow today, other than myself, follow, if you go to on Twitter at the Giddy Teacher, so that's the Giddy, Giddy teacher, the Giddy Teacher. Look at her pinned tweet, and she does Lou does a newsletter that goes out once a month, and it's the reading newsletter. It's fantastic, and she's got a template there that you can use and adapt. It's quite detailed. I'd probably, if it was me, I'd probably simplify it a little bit so it's a little bit less work, but absolutely fantastic. So if you're going to follow some people today, at the Giddy Teacher, and have a look at her pinned tweet. So beyond the classroom, is that important? Well, it is. It is important. You've got to get the parents involved and on board. The library, not just the class library, but the school library. Are all children in your school, do a little survey, how many children have a library card for the library outside of school, the local library, if you're lucky enough to have one? How many people have a library ticket? How many people have been there in the last 2 weeks and regularly get books out of their library? What about the library in our class? You see lots on the internet, don't you, of how beautiful that looks. But what about your school library? Is there diversity in the books there? Do they have real choice? Do you showcase good literature? When you walk, it should be the jewel in the crown. So when you walk into the library, you should be like, "Oh, this is amazing." Or is it, sometimes when they say, "Can I go and look at your library?" I always think, is it going to be a library or is it just a glorified store cupboard? And you'll be surprised how many times you walk in and it's just a dumping ground for other things. And it's only a library because it's got lots of books around the corner. So how do you value that library? We've got the Book Nut Cafe. So that I won't talk too much about, but that's about, well, opening it up to parents. So is the school library available to parents? Obviously, we can't do it at this time, but later on, when everything's sorted in usual times, that might be the case. And I know, Gaz Needle, you're going to talk a little about a book and a brew that you've started. Obviously, suspended it at the moment, but you'll talk about that a bit later on as well. We've got author visits. So one of the things that I tend to ask schools to do if they want to try and become a reading school is just in the staff room at the beginning of the year, you put up a big piece of A3 paper, and at the top you just put, "We are a reading school." At the bottom, how do we prove it? Well, one of the things that you can do to prove that you're a reading school is ask yourself, when was the last time you had an author in? When was the last time you had a poet in? You know, um, two authors that I know that are really, really good. One for Key Stage 1, Pippa Pixley. So if you don't know her, have a follow of her as well. She's lovely, a lovely lady, and she will help the children create a book themselves. And the children do the illustrations of the book, so they're creating a book in an authentic way. That's really good, really, really lovely lady, Pippa Pixley. And the second one, I'd probably say Guy Bass is a good one, especially for Key Stage 2 and the Stitchhead series. He's brilliant. I've been in the school, a few schools when he's been in at the same time, and the teachers have absolutely, and the kids have absolutely loved it. And the last thing there is Newsday Tuesday. Now, like I said, I'm in a lucky position here to be able to go round schools and provide training on guided reading, reading intervention. And this idea came from I was working in North Yorkshire, in Ripon, or near Ripon it was, and we're doing it was a lot of farming schools and lots of small schools, and one of the schools, you have 34 kids in the entire school, so that's how small it was. She came up with it with this Newsday Tuesday, and it was about making links to the wider world. And so that's a really nice little thing to do. We could do that as an assembly. So you have what it is basically you have a local piece of news. So the local piece of news for they walk into assembly. I know you don't do assemblies properly now, but you'd go in and you'd have like a backdrop of a news feed. And you've got like a little desk, like a news desk, and the first adult talks about a local piece of news. So it could be to do with the school or the local community. And then after 7 minutes, ding, 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 they change. And so you think of a national piece of news, and a story to do with the national, something happy to do with national. And then after 7 minutes, ding, 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 they change again. And the third adult talks about something of a world international news. And that's important because you're trying to make sure that it's not just being a good reader is because you've got lots of reference points to bring to the table when you read. It's not just about it's not just what the book gives you, but about what you bring to the book. So it goes back to that growing the child as a holistic, growing the whole child and making them more aware of the community that they live in, the nation that they live in, the world that they live in, because that will make them better readers, but it'll also make them better people. And the two are interchangeable. Reading for purpose is the next one. So, like I said before, this is the other side of the coin, if you like. We do tend to read what we want to read, pick up a book and read it because it's a pleasurable experience and it moves us, it stirs the soul, if you like. But on the other side of the coin, there are times when we read, not because the baking a cake, for example, you might read a recipe to bake a cake. Now you will get enjoyment from the process of baking and eating the cake, but the actual reading of the recipe is purposeful in that regard. Same again with when you get a board game, you read the instructions because you'll get derived pleasure from playing the game and interacting with the game. So reading for purpose is important. Are those reading experiences authentic? So are you looking up factual information just because you've been told to? Or is it because you want to write a report or do a PowerPoint presentation on your favourite study of your favourite subject. Again, it links to the autonomy that we're going to talk about next. So if you have a report on dinosaurs, do you get to choose which dinosaur you're going to look and research about and explain, deliver that explanation to your fellow learners? Authentic audiences, is that, again, do we always read just to an adult? Or do we also have those experiences and audiences that we can read to younger children? So reading ambassadors we had in our school, whereas in year 3 and 4, they were picking up books, but then they would read as a reading ambassador. They would take time and opportunities to go and read to year 1 of reception children. And you'd be surprised at how engaged the year 1s and the reception children were being read to by other children, but more importantly, the reading ambassadors from year 4 going to read to year 1, how important and privileged they felt. They took on that role really responsibly. It was beautiful to see. And then reading for real. Maddie Barnes, the second person to follow on Twitter is Maddie Barnes. She's a fantastic consultant for literacy. At Moon Maddie is her Twitter thing. I don't know what to call them, but she talks about reading for real and how you can put in that's intonation and reading all that. So that's nice as well. And then finally, autonomy. So learner choices. Do children get to choose what they read, or do we tell them what they've got to read all the time? So 3 things there: the rights of the reader. The rights of the reader. On my webpage, if you go to Read for Pleasure, that's page. It's actually based on a book called The Rights of the Reader, and there's a big poster you can get. I'll pin the poster onto my website if you want to download it. But the first right of the reader is when not to read. The right not to read, which I think is quite an interesting one. And to just looking at those choices, really, learner choices, are they always picking up a David Walliams book? Are they always picking up a comic? And is that right? Is it okay to do that? And sometimes it is, and sometimes it isn't. If you only have a diet of a certain author, then that you're not making links which will inhibit. But who are we to say that? I used to always read Secret 7 books, always, and because I loved them. I got into that genre and I really loved it. So again, that's about learner choices, isn't it? I put here right at the end, 1-to-1 reading, only because it's a little bugbear of mine. All children have the right, and it is a right. Lots of people say, well, reading is a gift. Drives me potty that. Reading is a right, a human right, to be able to read, because if you can't read, not only does it in school narrow the curriculum and inhibit your own learning, but it also locks the key. It locks reading, unlocks opportunity for you. So if you can't read, those doors of opportunity are lost and remain locked. 1-to-1 reading, though, sometimes you only get to read to an adult if you're struggling or in the early stages of reading development in Key Stage 1. And I firmly believe that every child has the right to read to an adult. So even your most accomplished and adept reader in year 6, at some point, has the right to read to an adult and discuss what they're reading. Yeah, and I love that. 1-to-1 reading is such a powerful approach. Now they're not gonna. Your most adept readers won't need that every week. Someone who's struggling a little bit might need it every week, maybe even twice a week. But over time, all children have the right to be heard, to be read, and to discuss what they're reading. in a natural way. Right, so here we go. So I've got 3 books here that I think, this is the bit where I'm a bit scared now, because I'm going to change the screen and we're going to go to a question and answer. So I'm going to show you 3 books that I've read during these last few months. I'll tell you why I love them, and then we're going to ask Gaz to look at one and share one with Graham, and we'll do a quick question and answer session. So I think I know, if I press stop sharing, this should go. If it goes horribly wrong, and I leave you at this point, don't worry, I'll tweet something. So here we go. Stop sharing. That's pressed.
Hey, here we are, John.
Am I on?
I can hear you.
Hey, I'm on. Am I on now? Right,
yes.
Brilliant, good. So 3 books that I love. I've picked them because it's an emotional response. Remember, it's not just a physical process or cognitive process. It's an emotional response. I've chosen 3 books. One to make you think, one to make you smile, and one to make you laugh. So the first book is this book, The Wall in the Middle of the Book. This really, it's from a place called the Scallywag Press. And now they've not got many books on there. They've not got hundreds and hundreds of books. They've only got quite a short bit of books. I tell you what, the ones that they've got though tend to be put in for awards and medals and all that. Get great accolades. This straight away, this reminded me of 2 other books. Link. So this book is all about refugees and those barriers. So straight away, it reminded me of my favourite picture book of all time, Wisp, which is about a refugee camp. There's a wall in that, and The Island. But all 3 of those books have got, you could do as a picture book study, 3 weeks of the guided reading. They all talk, this is about refugees, it's about what do we see on the side of the wall? What is the wall for? Is it just, honestly, this book blew me away. And lots, if you go to Scallywag Press, you'll notice some of them have got them in Amnesty International. Same with Wisp. If they've got anything that are sanctioned from the Amnesty International, you know it's going to be a good thinking book. So that's one choice. Second choice, Cloud Tea Monkeys. So as a coffee drinker, honestly, tell you what, this made my soul sing. It absolutely, I just loved it. I've read that 3 times already. It's set in India on a tea plantation, and the girl's mother becomes sick, so she can't pick the tea. Oh, beautiful. The illustrations in here will blow you away. So what I would do is I'd probably take the photograph of the picture, put it up so that you could look at the pictures while you're reading the story. Let me see. Oh, it's just absolutely gorgeous. Beautiful illustrations there. So Cloud Tea Monkeys, definitely one that will make your heart warm. And then the third one, to make you laugh, this one, Bears Don't Eat Egg Sandwiches. This is laugh out loud funny. Incredibly funny, in fact. About a boy who's having his egg buttered, hears a knock on the door, comes open the door, there's a bear. He's like, oh, do you want an egg sandwich? And the bear just goes, bears don't eat egg sandwiches. And as you're going along the story, hilarious. So really good, that one. Right, that's me. That's me. My 3. I know, Gaz, you said you'd brought along a book that you... Was it to make you think, or to make
no, just because it's brilliant. Just because it's brilliant, and it's one of my favourite books to use. So hopefully, I'm going to share my screen now. Application window. Can you see that?
Oh, yes, we can.
Excellent. It's the book with no pictures by B.J. Novak.
Yeah.
For those of you who are nerds like me, he's one of the characters. B.J. Novak plays one of the characters in The American Office, is also one of the writers. And it kind of encourages kids away from books with pictures, but it's just beautiful to read with a bunch of kids. So I'll just share the first few pages and you'll get the gist of it. So it's got this lovely bit where it says Brap and Brug, and then you've got the title page, and then it's a beautiful book. If you've got this book as a physical book, you've got the left-hand page, which doesn't show very much, and then the right-hand page, which gives you the words to start off with. It says, "This is a book with no pictures. It might seem like no fun to have someone read you a book with no pictures. It probably seems boring and serious, except here's how books work. Everything the words say, the person reading the book has to say, no matter what. That's the deal. That's the rule. So that means even if the words say, Blark, wait, what? That doesn't even mean anything. Blurth, wait a second, what? This isn't the kind of book I wanted to read. And I have to say every word in the book, every word the book says. Uh-oh. I am a monkey who taught myself to read. Hey, I'm not a monkey. And now I am reading you this with my monkey mouth and in my monkey voice. That's not true. I'm not a monkey." And it carries on like that. It's just an absolutely beautiful, beautiful book. And it just makes the kids laugh out loud. And for some kids, it's the switch where they realize that how you say the words, and that books can have further meanings just than reading the phonics that are on the page to sound something out.
It's back to what Maddie talks about when she talks about reading for real. And it's such a, what that type of book does, it helps them tune in. So the metronomics of language, and it's why it's not just about books, but about the oracy, and getting children to listen to books, and us being a good model for reading by reading to them. Don't always children listen to us. When do children listen to us read and be engaged and animated with the text? When do we? And I bet you laughed. When you were doing it as well. So
when we read it, it's just hilarious. And I've read it with small groups. I've read it with whole school. Whenever I think about a book to make me smile, that was one of our assembly themes: laughter and fun. And I just read that. It's just brilliant.
I'll tell you a really good one that I've learned. Old MacDonald heard a parp, which is really funny. You got to take a whoopee cushion in, and every time the different animal or a duck or a cow mates one, sit on the whoopee cushion, they will be crying with laughter. But those are the memories they take with them.
Yeah.
You'll take those story times with. It's why story time is so important. 10 minutes a day, reading to children. We model being a reader and our love for reading through how we engage with text and not just with children. So that's good.
And I think that goes right back to what you were saying about it being an emotional response, because as you were talking about having an emotional response, it then set off my thought pattern. And I remember Mr. McCarthy, God bless him. I think he's still around, but he had a really big nose, so he called him Concord. But when we got into year 6, he came into year 6 and did story time for us at the end of the day on a Friday. And he read The Hobbit with us, and it just sparked a love for reading inside me. And then that made me think about you talked about the library and going to the library.
Yeah.
And I remember going once a week, and I'd sit down and I'd sit with Asterix or Tintin, and I'd go on an adventure with them. And I know that we were talking about pop-up books a few weeks ago.
Yeah,
and,
we were.
The one that I was thinking of was, is it Jan Pankowski, The Haunted House? And in it,
I remember that.
And I remember like a washing machine where it's like a monster's coming out, or a bathroom just those, they give you an emotional response, even as I'm thinking about now, 40 years later.
And it's why all change is a good little thing to do once a term, because say it was just you yourself doing it. Well, if each day they're changing, they'll have heard 5 different teachers, 5 adults being animated and loving a story that they're going into. So yeah, lovely. Hey, the giddy teacher. Hey, Lou. Hello. Yeah, honestly, it's so important. I tell you, but not a lot of people read. They'll have seen the film The Wizard of Oz, but they very rarely read it. If you are a year three, well, honestly, that is such a beautiful book. The opening to that is like John Steinbeck for me. It's absolutely quintessentially beautiful. If you've not read the Wizard of Oz, I absolutely recommend that you do it because don't be afraid of reading the classics. Like you said with The Hobbit, the classics are classics for a reason. And if we don't read them the classics, that might be the only time that they get to encounter it because they may not be a member of the library. They might not be read at home at bedtime. They may not be bought presents of a book token or a book itself. So we might be the only chance that they get to ever listen to and hear classics, children's classics.
And what about story time then, John? Because I think I've always treated story time in my class when I was in the class as something that, well, I just used to love it. Number one, I could act out daft voices. Number two, the kids absolutely love it. My favourite was working up to a point where you just leave them on a cliffhanger and you close the book and you go, we'll find out what happens next time.
Oh, no.
And they go, tell us.
Yeah.
But what do you say to people then because I know from being an English leader in a couple of schools that you do get people who say, my timetable's too crowded. It's too crowded. I've got too much to fit in. How am I going to fit in 10 minutes of story time when I can't even fit in my history, geography, science, art, DT, RE, English, maths,
but
PE,
I would say
music, French.
That's why it should be timetabled because it's something you have to buy into, not just as an individual teacher, but as a school ethos. So if it's timetabled so that everyone is reading at a particular time, it gives it validity. So we timetabled it and it made a huge difference so that it couldn't be crowded out because it's just too important. It's just too important.
And that's what we said to ours in September was that, story time, we have it at the end of the day. But especially now, kids need stories and need to understand their own lives through stories because when we're talking to other people, when we're processing what's happening to us, we do that through
stories.
The medium of story. It's the story of our life, isn't it?
Reading makes you better writers, but it also makes better communicators, and it helps you understand life. It helps you understand the world that they live in, the community that they live in. So it makes them better people. So it's so powerful to do that. For me, if people say, "Oh, I haven't got time," well, you have to make time. You have to make time, and if you can, if there's a will, there's a way, and if you want to do it, then you'll do it.
And what about Toria asked, how do you encourage teachers who only ever use books from when they were a child? How do you get them to embrace new books?
Modern, yeah. Do you know what? I'm probably a fault at this because I usually go for. I've got the Magic Faraway Tree, Charlotte's Web, The Wizard of Oz. Those books are absolutely cherished by me. But some of the more modern fiction, I'm not well up on as such. So perhaps it is you do a classic one half term, you do a more modern one the next one. I'll tell you what I did once, only because, well, I suppose we've been a bit lazy, but the audio books, do one of those if you want as well. Not everyone's a confident reader. I know we're adults, but not everyone's a showman when it comes to reading out loud. So don't be scared of audio books. They'll still swim in that sea of aura. They'll still hear that beautiful language and be able to engage with it mentally in terms of viewing, making pictures in the head and everything. So audio books are something that you could consider as well.
Yeah, just something else I picked up on. You talked about people coming into your school as well, and about getting authors coming in. I don't think he's been mentioned on here, but we had Ian Blanding. He's at Bland Poet on Twitter, and he was absolutely fantastic. and our English leader, he was only in the infants. He was in year 1 and year 2 for the morning.
Yeah.
And he went to another couple of schools in our cluster, and he was fantastic. And he was that good that each one of the 4 schools in our small cluster is going to get him back in, because he was just fantastic. He brought poetry to life better than any of the teachers could. And our English leader just said, "Can we have him back in for the juniors?"
Yeah. What do you think is reading spines? I know someone just put there about there's quite a few reading spines, so they'll assign certain books to certain year groups. I'd just be careful with that personally. Good for those who haven't. Take something like The Wizard of Oz or Charlotte's Web. You might see that in a spine and say, "Oh, it's year 4." So if I wasn't teaching year 4, I might even think, "Oh no, they're doing it in year 4. I can't touch it." I'd be like, I think if you're passionate about a book, don't be locked into, well, this is a year 4 book, this is a year 2 book. It's a bit like Wisp. That book, you could say, is a year 4 book, but I've done a project with Key Stage 3 with that book. So if you narrow it down to a certain year group, sometimes it can confine you in things. And I know Charlotte's Web sometimes is seen as a year 4 or year 5, but I know a year 2 teacher who's read that at story time, and the kids were so engaged with it because she was passionate about that book. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, and I think that goes on to Mrs. It just popped up at the bottom there. Mrs. McGowan said, "How do you encourage children to read more substantial texts?" That's one of the ways that we can do it, is by actually reading to them those more substantial texts.
Yeah.
And I think, like you said, children will get a lot more of the meaning if it's read by somebody who has a good understanding of the text, knows what's coming up.
Yeah, I think more substantial text leave to your literacy. So your literacy has to be book based. Your guided reading might be short excerpts or a chapter, or maybe a letter. It may be a poem. It may be song lyrics. But your literacy really does have to be book based in a school, so that you've got that longevity and stamina of reading, especially when in upper Key Stage 2.
And what you said about authentic experiences, that having an authentic audience to read to also leaks into having an authentic audience to write to as well. So I know that's some of the best writing that my kids have done, of when they've had an actual a real life person rather than just doing a writing exercise in English.
Yeah, of course it is, because you engage with. It's like when we used to write prayers at the beginning of, when I was at St. Paul's, used to write prayers at the beginning of the year, but then they'd use those prayers in the assembly times. So they would practice reading their prayer, and then they would deliver their prayer or say their prayer to a real audience, and it would be adults as well in the audience. So reading for real is important. Authentic experiences.
And I think for us, the turning point came. I thought we were a pretty good reading school, but when we did a survey of the children's attitudes towards reading, I think the top 5 people were something like J.K. Rowling, David Walliams, Roald Dahl, Don't Know, and then Liz Pishon. And it was kind of when Don't Know came up in the top 5 for who's your favourite authors, that was kind of the time when we thought we need to do something about reading, and we changed everything that we do.
Yeah, because you want that rich diet. You want a balanced diet. So you've got like men and women, you've got different communities, cultures, different types of texts. There's a balance. We've talked a lot about fiction today. We've not really talked a lot about factual books. I know Graham was going to talk about some real books that he's enjoyed, factual stuff as well as fiction, and having that beautiful diet. Oh, here he is.
Well, do you know what? You were doing so well. I just thought it was just nice to watch you two having a good old chat.
That's what Book Blather's about. That's what it's coming just talk. Just go in and talk, and that's what when I talked about that, when you go into a staff room, the last staff meeting in every half term, just bring your book or bring your poem or bring your piece of text that's blown you away. That's all it is like 20 minutes just sharing and interchanging texts. So what book did you bring, Graham?
Well, before I share my book, and I'm a bit conscious of the time, to be honest, because it's flown by, isn't it? But
It has
there's
flown.
a couple of things I wanted to mention. When it comes to storytelling, the person that I aspire to be was Rick Mail.
Oh, yeah.
Story. I think if I could be that good, that's what I'd like to be.
Do you know what? I had a teacher once. We was in a school once where he was just so shy and did not want to read out loud.
Yeah.
He played that. You can get it on YouTube.
Yeah.
He played Rick Mail. We were doing George's Marvelous Medicine. He just went, I can't beat that. No. Can't beat that. I'll go and let's play this. And he put it up. And I'm just like, that's fair enough. If you're not confident and you want to do something like that, perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
That's brilliant. So going right back to the very beginning of your presentation, which was brilliant, John. Cheers, mate. Thank you very much. You mentioned boys reading and how sometimes it's hard to get them interested in reading. How do you get over that? Because it is something, we've done quite a bit of work on gender equality and things in our school, but it's something we still find quite difficult.
It's cultural. It's cultural, a little bit of it. I think two things that we've mentioned already today. Having male role models.
Yeah.
The number of schools you go into and there's no male, or there's only one other guy, and it's usually the head. And so having good male role models. Guy Bass, I know Guy Bass coming in is in St Anne's in Royton. Amazing stuff, and he did, and the boys just gravitated. I think it comes back to that autonomy and giving them choices that they. So I always say when we in guided reading, all right, if there's anything is there a topic or a subject that you want to read about and learn more about, and they'll go. Yeah, dinosaurs. I want to learn about dinosaurs. Oh, sharks. Sharks was one I had one. And so if you can say, right, okay, that's what you want to read about, right, I'll look at that. And then you can, so to have autonomy about if I just said, right, this week we're going to talk about trains. It's all about trains, or it's all about Japan, and you're not really buying into that or want to buy into it, then straight away that's one barrier, isn't it? Giving them choice and some freedom of choice. Let them just have a suggestion box on your desk and say, right, for the next 3 weeks, what subject do you want to read about? Like that, your book, you were going to talk about survivors, weren't you?
Yeah.
You could do like 2 or 3 weeks on survivors, on how an individual has survived a terrible experience. Maybe a bit bloody and a bit gory, but I think you'll like it. And then that interchange, the second week, do you want us to do another one? Should we do another one? And if they're like, yeah, come on, let's do it. You know what I mean? That autonomy and getting them involved in the choice, I think, is really important.
Yeah, I had a little lad I've got in my class. He's got autism, ADHD. He's got the lot. And he at the start of the year, he said to me, "Do you know, Stronger, I don't like reading. I can't stand reading." I think because what happened was, he always saw reading as, he had these little red books, cats on the mat, blah, blah, blah. He's not the most reader. And that's what he saw reading was. So we started using some of the extracts from the literacy shed. There's some brilliant stuff on there. And I've started working with him in a little group most days. And he now loves it. He loves his reading because they're small, they're interesting. He knows he's going to sit down and have a bit of time in a small group.
Comics are a good way to get into stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
Some lads don't like, or even girls really, don't really. If it's text dense, it's very text dense, it can put some children off. Very sophisticated, the language in comics. You'd be surprised. Survivors is great. We have used it.
So I'll quickly, because I'm just looking at the time. Look at the time. So this was the book I chose, Survivors, and the reason I chose it was because I actually saw it. It came up on Rob Smith's feed for the literacy shed, and they had some comprehension work around it. So I thought, we were doing Explorers. Explorers is our topic this term. So I thought that sounds brilliant. So basically, they're all fact stories. They're stories that are true, that have happened, and they've happened all around the world and at different times. But what's brilliant about them is that the illustrations are beautiful, but there's peril in there. You know, I mean, it gives it gives it away by saying survivors, but when you say to the kids, right, tomorrow our story is, and they're almost more interested in what this next story was going to be. There's things like the trapper who grappled with a grizzly, or the man who sucked blood from a shark. And so quite often
they love stuff like that.
They love it, and quite often it will be a story where they'd have to eat their dogs, or actually two of the members of their party actually died. But
but it's because it's the human spirit and the human, and and that goes back to that emotional response and growing the whole child. If you want to develop a reader, you've got to develop the child, and that's what you've got to. So things like that, really, that's why Tuesday is really good, because it gets them emotionally involved with real situations and have that balance. If everything's fiction and fiction and fiction, at some point you have to relate that to yourself, don't you?
Yeah. And every story, you know, there's points in the story where the person that survived could have quite easily just given up.
Yeah.
But they didn't. They kept going, and because of that,
you know, that's a little bit like when you're going through a thick book, you're like, I love it, but I'm just a bit tired. You know, but keep going, and you'll crack it. But and I think this is an interchange of ideas and thoughts about reading. That's what you need. It goes quickly because you're enjoying it, and it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's been brilliant. I think people really enjoyed it, Gaz, haven't they?
Well, I have. I don't know about and no, it's you can see on the comments there, people thanking you, John. Thanks for your time tonight.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely brilliant. I've loved absolutely every minute of it. Sitting here listening to you and talking through books with you. Just final question then, John, Graham, Desert Island. Which book are you going to take with you?
Watership Down.
Straight
out of the blocks.
That's hard book, but it's lovely. It's great story. Why do you like it?
I think it takes me back. It's probably one of the first books, like proper books, that I read, and it just took me to a place that was familiar but different. And there was peril. There was a bit of horror in there. It's not there's some quite adult things in there, aren't there? But I just think it's a brilliantly written book, and I'd love to go to Watership Down actually and see the real place. But I know SF Said, that's his favourite book as well. The writer of
is it? Right, interesting. Do you know what? It's not a children's book. Does it have to be a children's book?
No.
Silence of the Lambs.
Silence of the Lambs.
Do you know what?
Robert Harris.
Jimmy Cooper Riders or something.
Well, no. Do you know what it was? I find as a reading expert and someone who goes in and looks at guided reading, you think I've got a lot of stamina when it comes to reading. I find reading really hard at times, especially when it's a thick book. And I've only really read 2 books where I physically could not put the book down. Silence of the Lambs was one when I was 15. It was the first book I'd read that I physically could not put down. It was so good. So I think I'd probably go and try. Mind you, you're on a desert island, aren't you? On your own. That'd probably be too scary for me. I'll stick with this. I'll stick with this. This is the best picture book ever. I'll stick with that. John, scaredy pants.
Graham, thank you for your technical expertise tonight. John, thank you for your literary insight.
What's your choice?
I'd go Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
Lord of the Rings. I'm a nerd.
Yeah, you are a nerd.
I know. I'm a nerd and proud. I just love the expansive nature, the characters that are in there, the conflict, the good versus evil. I just think it creates a picture inside my head that is just vast and unfathomable. I love it. It's one of those books that I regularly come back to and repeat reading, and I think that's important. We've not mentioned that tonight. Repeat reading.
It is reading books with different eyes, even if, because you read a book at 20 and you read a book when you're married or you've got children when you're in your 30s, you'll read that book different. You'll read it book different. The one thing I would say, Gaz, before we go, is that this CPD, we've got 3 middle-aged, bit of stocky, bit of timber on us, haven't we? A bit old white. You're going to have a range of people doing different CPD. So I'm looking forward to be able to come and join as a viewer, not just as someone hosting, but to view a range of people from a range of topics, a range of subjects. And I think this CPD idea is a fantastic one. And I just want to say thank you for inviting me to be the opening gambit. But I'm also looking forward to seeing the plethora and the banquet of different people from different persuasions, different topics. I think it's going to be great, and it's what education should be about.
Well, I can't think of a better way to end it there. So thank you, John. Thank you, Graham, and we'll see you soon.
See ya. Thank you.
So we're going to do this every month, are we, Gaz?
Every month, first Monday of the month. I think we're aiming for.
So you're going to be asking people for their suggestions, yeah?
I will be. I've got that down as my final thing is who should we do next, and I've just tweeted it out. I thought if we I'll pin it to the Primary Rocks. I will pin it to the Primary Rocks Twitter feed. So give us a shout. Who would you like to hear? Who would you like to hear from?
I'll do reading intervention next term. There you go. There you go.
Gaz, what I'll do as well before we go is I'll keep this pinned to my profile so people can watch it. But if we got a Primary Rocks YouTube channel,
yep,
I'll make sure that we download it and we can get it put on there.
Brilliant, Tim Head.
Yeah, with Tim Head. Actually, talking about Tim Head, again before we go, your book, Gaz. What was the author's name?
My book.
Yeah.
B.J. Novak.
J.R.R. Tolkien.
No,
the book that's
B.J. Novak.
B.J. Novak.
What did B.J. stand for?
I don't know.
Billy in it? I don't know. You have to find
Billie
out.
Jean? No,
Billie Jean.
Is it time to go, do you reckon?
It is.
Night.
Night.
Thanks for joining us.
Benjamin Joseph. Just a quick Google search. Benjamin Joseph.
Benjamin Joseph. That's good. All right. Well, I'll see you. Good night.
Take care, people.
God bless. Sleep well.
See you later.
Bye.